Welcome back to another episode of Around the World. This is episode 9, and we continue along this regular season, the 24-25 NBA regular season. We are finally starting to see some separation in the NBA standings. We are seeing clear differences between teams that look like they are going to be good and look like they are going to struggle for a long time. Starting first, of course, with our community question. Always have to start every episode with this. We saw Paulo last week score 50, and that got me thinking, who do we think is going to be the next player to score 50 this season? I have two picks. One of them I think is going to be Joel Embiid. I think it's honestly likely we see next week when he comes back, if he really is fully healthy. He's dropped 50 when he plays those lower teams in the conferences, and I could see him dropping 50 in one of those early games. But my main pick is going to be Luka Doncic. He's had some nights where he has shot many shots, but he just hasn't hit them. Like, he's had games where he shot 25, 30 plus shots, and he just hasn't hit them. So I think one of these nights he's just going to start connecting, and we will see Luka drop 50. But be sure to let me know in the comments below who you think is going to be the next. I will mention this now. I'm sure, as you guys can tell already by my voice, if you've listened to the other episodes, I am sick today. So I apologize for the raspy voice, as well as some coughing you're probably going to hear. And if you're watching on YouTube and you can see me physically, you'll see me drinking some water throughout this video. The main topic I want to hit on today is not as big as the topics we've talked about in the previous video. So other topics we did, like biggest frauds, biggest surprise, that sort of stuff. The topic I want to hit on today, I think it's a little too early to start grading seasons, and I think it's one of the things I'm going to do maybe next week. Or getting into award predictions, but one of the things I want to do is just talk about the Eastern Conference as a whole. We'll get into team-specific stuff when we get into those weekly notes like we do every single episode, but what I want to talk about is how the Eastern Conference has 2 teams above 500 and only 4 teams 500 or better. Of course, you have the Cavs and Celtics, Cavs 9-0, Celtics 7-2, Pacers 4-4, Nets 4-4. Everybody else in the entire Eastern Conference is below 500, including, of course, teams like the Bucks and Sixers, teams like the Heat, teams like the Knicks, obviously early on in the season. But that is a pretty damning stat, and I think it really is a testament to, we talked about how good the Western Conference is. Not only is it a testament to how good the Western Conference is, it's how bad the Eastern Conference is right now. The Eastern Conference has, I think, for majority of my life, been considered the weak conference, right? It was pretty much LeBron coming out of it and the Heat coming out of it, Cavs, every single year. And now it continues to feel like it gets weaker. You don't have a LeBron that's just going to win it. But the way it's going right now, it does look like the Celtics are just going to walk their way to another Eastern Conference Finals or potentially Finals appearance, because they have 2, maybe 3 teams that can put up a competition. We thought it was maybe going to be a little more competitive this year, but with the start from a team like, say, the Bucks, who you can ignore the Philly start because of the health, but the Bucks have been pretty well fully healthy outside of course, Chris Middleton. But most of these teams are fully healthy and still struggling, and the only teams that are struggling badly are the hurt ones, the Sixers, the Magic. But the Knicks, healthy majority, at least enough that they shouldn't start 3-4 and be losing to the Hawks and stuff like that, which we'll get into later. So I'm concerned, and they showed a strength of schedule graphic the other day, talking about teams who have the easiest strength of schedule for the rest of the year and the hardest. And I believe everybody in the entire Eastern Conference strength of schedule is below 500 for the rest of the year. That is how much easier it is to be in the East than it is to be in the West. So I just wanted to hit on that very briefly. It was just the main topic on my mind today, since I didn't have one of those core topics to talk about for the first 10 or so minutes. The Eastern Conference is at a really, really weird spot, and I think it's definitely concerning, because there's no reason the West should have like 11, 12, 13 competitive teams. Like, you look at the West right now, the bottom teams, the Jazz, obviously not great, but they can put up a competitive fight on some of these nights. Pelicans, extremely injured, still 3-6, would put them midway through the Eastern Conference right now, like the 8 or 9 seed. So Spurs 4-5, Clippers 4-4. Like the two teams that you would say like are the least competitive out west are like the Blazers and the Jazz. And even then, the Jazz put up fights regularly, and the Blazers put up fights regularly. Teams like the Rockets and Warriors, who were worse last year, are now 3-4 in the Western Conference right now. So the West is so absurdly stacked that there's really no excuse for the Eastern Conference to be this much worse with the amount of talent that is in the NBA right now. So we'll see how it goes, but the Eastern Conference certainly looks awful to start the season. I cannot lie. That was the topic for today. Like I said, a very short one, and this overall I think is going to be another short episode with no main topic to talk about. But it's time to get into our weekly notes. As always, I'm not going to hit on every single topic, not going to hit on every single team, but I will hit on some of the main things I want to talk about and main stories around the NBA. Starting first with a game that I watched a majority of, and that was the Kings versus the Heat the other day. Sabonis hits the game winner. I believe it was Fox takes the shot, misses it. Sabonis gets the rebound, kind of a little fadeaway putback. And then the Heat, for some reason, although down 1 point or whatever it was, decide to go with like a Terry Rozier half-court heave, which is really weird, but doesn't matter. But the main reason I bring this up is because the Kings have gotten off to a really solid start so far this season. We remember talking about them when they were 0-2 and being like, you know what, I think they look okay, but the record doesn't show it yet. And since that point, they're 5-1. Obviously, I don't think they're going to have playoff success, and I mention that each and every time I bring up the Kings. They're going to win regular season games. I just can't see them winning or going on a deep playoff run because they rely so heavily on the offense that, you know, if they have more off nights or more regular nights than insanely efficient nights, there's just no way they're going to win a series. So, but the Kings have definitely worked their way back up. Again, 5-3 in the Western Conference puts them at tied for 8th, which is hilarious because in the Eastern Conference that would put them at the 3 seed right now. But the Kings look much, much better. They're an exciting watch. They're always going to be an exciting watch with the pace of play that they play at, although I believe the Bulls are still number 1 in pace so far this year. So really, really happy that the Kings got back on track, and the West continues to be incredibly competitive because of teams like that who were, 9-10 seed last year that can compete just as well with the 2-3 seeds out west. So great start for the Kings. I'm really happy to see them back up and going, especially after the big moves that they made in the offseason. We'll stick with the Western Conference team here, but more specifically one single player, and that is Anthony Edwards. There's been a lot of talk. Obviously, you have the quote the other day about his three-point shooting. What he said, the reporter Dan Moore asked him, what would you say to people who say you're taking too many threes? And he said, fuck them. That was his response. Ant is most definitely taking more threes. I forgot to get a picture of this stat, but I believe it was he is third all time in most three-pointers made in the first 8 games of a season, of course behind Steph Curry because Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time. But it's not only the volume of threes that he's taking. We saw him leading the league in threes attempted for quite some time. I don't know if he's still at that point now after a couple more games, but he certainly was through 4 games or so. But yeah, it's not only the volume, it's the efficiency. This I did see last night, and I do have it pulled up right now. 45% on 10 three-pointers attempted per game through 8 games of a season. So what players have shot 45% from 3 while shooting 10 or more three-point attempts per game through the first 8 games? There are 4 times this happened. 3 of them are Steph Curry. The 4th one is Anthony Edwards this year. It is incredible. Not only is the volume there, the efficiency is there. And of course, he still has the ability to hit those mid-range shots, still has the ability to bully down low, get into the paint, be physical. He almost had a big poster on Vucevic last night, although it was an offensive foul. And it's really exciting. I think that was the next big leap for Ant. We saw the efficiency climb from 3, but I think one of the big problems, especially as a Wolves fan who watched as all these first 4 years and now year 5, is we watched Anthony Edwards understand his shooting, but he would take almost too many deep mid-ranges. He loved taking that mid-range so much, especially, I believe, last year, that it almost became a detriment where it's like, dude, just take the step back and take the 3. I'm just as efficient. You're just as capable. And it's worth more. It's worth more. But it's a 33% increase in points. So why would you not take that? And he has absolutely answered the bell on that. He's taken more threes. He's been more efficient. Do I expect him to be 45% on this volume for an entire season? No. That is the type of stuff you see from Steph Curry. And I don't think Anthony Edwards, although he's a great shooter, is Steph Curry. But if he could stay even near 40%, like if he could stay in the 38, 39, 40, 41 range, that is going to put him at like a potential historic season in terms of 3-pointers made. Like we're talking top 10 all time. He needs, I believe, like 400, or not 400, I think like 200 something threes to be top 10 all time in a single season. Curry, of course, got the 400 record a few years back. And he already has 40 made through 8 games. So if he keeps this pace up, we're talking about Anthony Edwards being not just top 10 all time in 3-pointers made in a single season. We're talking about him being like top 5. Like, this is a historic season we're seeing so far from Anthony Edwards. I'm really excited, and I, as a person who has watched every Wolves game so far this season, it is not taking away from Anthony Edwards' other abilities. He's still getting to the basket. He's still being just as aggressive. He's just taking these threes when the opportunity gets there, and I think some of it has to do with no more Cat. He has made it clear to Gobert, set those screens high, and we saw this clip on starting 5, set those screens higher so they have to go under, and I'm either getting a switch onto a big, which I can take advantage of, or I have enough space to just pull the trigger and take a 3. So really, really exciting start for Anthony Edwards, and I'm excited to see where it goes for us this season. Like I said, don't expect to be 45% all year long, but really, really cool stuff from Ant. Next up, we get into our first rookie talk of the season, since we haven't had much showings for the rookies until this last week. Zach Edey puts up his best performance so far his rookie year, 25 points, 12 rebounds. He looked dominant against the Nets in this game. Unfortunately, he didn't close out the game, if I'm remembering correctly. But he looked completely dominant. He had a walk-up 3, which I thought was hilarious. He took 2 or 3 threes in all of college, made just one, and then I don't know where decided to pull that one out of the bag. But if he can even become a 30% 3-point shooter, that's an exciting find. He's already hit 2 threes on the season. He looks dominant. I think, yes, is he the most fun player to watch? No, but, and this was talked about even when he was in college, but he is that dominant, and no, it's like I said, it's not fun to watch. For some people, but he is that dominant, and people talked about, it's not going to translate to the NBA. So far, when he gets the minutes, it absolutely has. We'll see what he can do when he starts to play some of these better defensive centers, because obviously not every night's going to be 25 and 12, but certainly was a good sign for Zach Edey. And the other one, Zachary Ricochet, the number 1 pick, has his first big game against the New York Knicks, 33.7 boards, I believe 3 steals as well to go with it. The Knicks continue to get off to a slow start, as I mentioned, just 2 teams above 500 out east. You would expect one of those teams to be the Knicks. They are not. They are 3-4 to start the season. Obviously still very early. We have 75 games left to play, but it's not a great start for New York. Obviously they're still figuring it out. A lot of new pieces here and there. But Zachary Ricochet, really, really exciting to see. More minutes, more opportunity coming for him. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to continue to be a rotational piece, going to get a lot of minutes, and give himself a chance to win Rookie of the Year. And we stay in the Eastern Conference now to get back to a team we have talked about pretty much in every episode, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Still undefeated. 9-0. They did it to the Bucks again. Garland goes for 39. Has been really, really exciting to watch so far this season. He looks much, much better this year than he has over the last couple years with this Cavs team. No Giannis in this game, but again, Dame drops 30, and the Bucks lose again. They did just pick up a win the other night against the Jazz, I believe, but I mean, you can't exactly applaud the Bucks for beating the Jazz. At this point in the season, the Bucks are 2-6. I seriously don't know what's going on with them. I'll talk about them more later as we get into the Sixers and Bucks a little bit more in depth. But the Cavs are 9-0. Let me actually look at their schedule. I know they play the Warriors tonight in a big, big game. The Warriors are 7-1. But I'm curious as to if they beat the Warriors tonight, are they just chilling? They play the Warriors tonight, then the Cavs, or sorry, the Cavs, then play the Nets and the Bulls, Sixers, Bulls again, Hornets, and then they finally play the Celtics in the NBA Cup on Tuesday, November 19th. So if they can keep off the Warriors tonight, which they do play at home, I mean, there's a real chance this Cavs team could be 12-1, 13-1. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous stuff. So I'm really excited for this Cavs team. Great start. And it just looks like it's going to get even better. And I'm excited for the Celtics to, as long as Cavs can stay healthy, have some competition out east. So it's not just, Celtics are going to walk to the Eastern Conference Finals or Finals again. Staying out east, this one will be a little bit shorter. The Pistons get a couple nice wins. They beat the Nets, and then they go on and beat the Lakers. Still not a great start, 3-6, but for the Pistons, that is much better, considering they won like 12 games last year or whatever it was. And I think the shooting, and I talked about it all offseason, adding the shooting around Cade Cunningham was always going to be the obvious decision, and so far it has helped them look not like a great team, but a much more competent team in the NBA in the Eastern Conference. So that I am very happy for, and I will continue to watch the Pistons because they've got some young guys that are exciting to watch: Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham, Marcus Sasser, all that sort of stuff. So if they continue to build up this type of stuff, I think the Pistons very realistically will give themselves a chance over the course of the next couple of years to build back into a potential play-in and playoff team over the course of the next few years. But they beat the Lakers. The Lakers had a phenomenal start to the season, but have since dropped off. They have a winnable game tonight. I can't remember who they play, but it's not exactly a powerhouse team, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, they started the season 4-1, I believe. Since then, lost 3 straight. Yeah, they play Philly tonight with no Maxey and no Embiid. Start off the season 3-1 and then lose the next 3. Grizzlies game, definitely winnable. Obviously, the Pistons game, very winnable, and they should have won that. And they go from being, the 1 seed out west, or not the 1 seed, the 2 seed out west, all the way down to the 10 seed. As I said very early, and they're in a very difficult conference to compare to being out east, where they literally would be the 3 seed right now, with a 4-4 record. They have to find it. AD, hopefully, we just got a notification, I believe this morning or yesterday night, that AD has plantar fasciitis. I'm hoping that injury doesn't linger too long, because I've seen it in other athletes, both in basketball and other sports, where that injury, it's one that they can play through, but it really does affect them and how they play. So I'm hoping for AD's sake, it's not an injury that is going to affect him too much, because right now he does look like the MVP. I believe he's number 1 on the MVP ladder. I believe leading the league in points per game or close to it. Top 5 in rebounds. Of course, a yearly DPOY candidate. So I'm hoping the best for AD, hoping the best for the Lakers, because I think the Lakers being towards the top of the Western Conference would be a really entertaining thing to see, because this team is more exciting to watch than they have been over the course of the last couple years. I talked about AD being potentially the MVP. We'll stay in award talk for a little bit because we have had some 6 Man of the Year performances so far. Buddy Hield put up another 20-point game for the Warriors. The Warriors are 7-1, and as I mentioned a couple episodes ago, 6 Man of the Year often, when you have similar stats from these bench guys, will be given to the guy on the best team. And right now, Buddy Hield and the Warriors are the best team. So if Buddy Hield continues to do this, putting up nearly 20 points a game, efficient 3-point shooter, and the Warriors continue to stay at the top of the Western Conference, there's absolutely a chance that Buddy Hield could win 6 Man of the Year. Similar story for Peyton Pritchard. If he continues to put up, these 15-2-2 games or 18-3-4 games, whenever the Celtics play a team that he can take advantage of, when you get to the end of the year and the Celtics have 60-plus wins likely, Peyton Pritchard's going to have a case. he's going to have a case for Sixth Man of the Year because he brought value to a team that was so good. And again, the story stays the same for this guy. Naz Reid had, I believe, was the leading scorer for the Wolves against the Hornets the other night. When they play those worse off teams, that's oftentimes when the Sixth Man of the Year candidate steps up. Like Peyton Pritchard against the Hawks, Naz Reid against the Hornets. These guys step up in those games where they're playing the worst teams and make sure they don't lose. They go out there, they score at an extremely efficient level. The Sixth Man of the Year race this year, I think, is actually going to be a really, really entertaining one to watch, which is very funny to just hear and say out loud. But Buddy Hield, Peyton Pritchard, Naz Reid, and there's more that I'm forgetting just off the top of my head right now, Karis LeVert, that are going to have candidacies for Sixth Man of the Year, and I think it's going to be super, super entertaining. Moving back out east, we talked about the Bucks a little bit earlier. The Sixers and Bucks continue to slip. I again will keep the Bucks to a very minimum amount because I've talked about them pretty much in every episode. Hoping Doc Rivers gets fired. This is an embarrassing start. They play at a slow pace, and they're not good. Simple as that. You're not fun to watch, and you're not good, and you're not rebuilding. There's nothing good to look at the moment. Hopefully they can turn it around. But the main thing I want to talk about is the Sixers. Slower start, like I said, for them. They do have the excuse of injuries, though, but they are, last out east right now, 1-6. It very likely could be 1-7 tonight. The real problem for them, though, is injuries. So Embiid gets injured, then gets his suspension. He won't be back till next week. But then you also have Tyrese Maxey pick up a hamstring injury on his right side. That's going to cause him to miss a couple weeks. So now you're running out there with just Paul George, who clearly has struggled to start his tenure in Philadelphia. I believe 0-2 with him. Had a really not great debut game against the Phoenix Suns. And now it's just Paul George for the next 2-3 games. until you get Embiid back, and then even then, it's Embiid and Paul George, who can definitely get you wins. I don't think Philly's going to be god-awful with those two, but the chemistry of Maxey and Embiid is so important that as Paul George and Embiid continue to build that chemistry, they could still lose games. Whereas I think if you had Maxey and Embiid with Paul George recovering, we know that team can win games until Paul George gets back. So it's going to continue to be a scary, scary start for the Sixers. You just essentially have to hope that you get healthy, stay healthy, because there's no more room for error anymore. I mean, if you have another 1-6 stretch, you're 2-12, fifth of the way through the season, and you start to run out of games to not just be a 1 or 2 seed, but to catch up to some of these teams. So with the way the Eastern Conference is looking, they could go on a 3-game win streak and be 7th right now. So it's certainly scary, and I do feel for Philly because absolutely nothing can go right. You're about to finally get Embiid back. He gets suspended. You're about to finally have all three back. Max gets hurt for a couple weeks. They just haven't been able to catch a break for years. And it's really unfortunate because similar to what I said about the Lakers, I really do want to see Philly at the top half of the Eastern Conference and create some competition come postseason time. I talked about the Hornets a little bit when I talked about the Wolves game the other night, but I also want to talk about them just as a team who's got off to an all right start. I mentioned when I did my standings predictions that I didn't think they were going to be good or be a really, a competitor out east, but I expected them to be a play-in team this year. I thought they were going to make the jump from being a bottom feeder to a play-in team, and so far they have looked the part. Brandon Miller back from injury looks good. LaMelo Ball looks good. Tijan Salon has been able to get some minutes as a rookie, even if they're not super, super valuable. Charles Lee continues to look like the right signing as head coach of the Hornets, and I'm just really excited to see this team build up, find a foundation, and find a direction of where they're going. Because the problem with teams like the Pistons and even the Bulls, even though they were able to make play-ins and stuff, was that the direction was unclear. It's like, so we're just going to stay here, be mediocre, or the Hornets, we're just going to stay here, be bad. We're not going to go out and try to get draft picks. We're not going to make the right draft picks. We're not going to get a new coach. We saw, I forget the name of the guy who they had for way too long with Charlotte. So it's exciting. And I know they're only 3-5, and yes, that would not be good if they weren't out east right now, but they are out east right now. And so they are the 8th seed right now, which would put them in the play-in if the season ended today. And when I look at the teams below them, The Raptors, I'd expect them to be better than. The Pistons, I would expect them to be better than. The Wizards, I would expect them to be better than. That's 3 teams right there. You need 2 more teams to finish below them. The Nets could certainly get off to a slower start when they try to lose games. Say Cam Thomas gets traded. Say Cam Johnson gets traded. Claxton, although I don't know if Claxton can since he signed that extension. At least not until the deadline. So some of these teams could hit a little fall off. The Bulls, say the Sixers stay hurt all year. Say Paulo takes even longer to recover for the Magic. They can definitely finish top 10 out east. I don't expect them to be really, really good, but it's certainly possible that they can. Brandon Miller had the game winner the other night against the Pistons, which although it was a close game against the Pistons, I do think they are the better team. So it's really exciting for the Charlotte Hornets team. And I do think my prediction is going to turn out well, and I think they will be in the play-in. We move back out west for one of our final topics, which was the Grizzlies-Lakers beef. We had a fun game. The rivalry for the Grizzlies-Lakers is alive and well, even without Dillon Brooks in the mix anymore. LeBron and Ja trade the too small celebration on each other. You have the Twitter beef and stuff. It's just exciting. This is what I love about the NBA, and what the NBA is missing is just these little rivalries here and there. You would never expect the Lakers and Grizzlies to be a rival, right? You're always going to expect, especially after the championships, the Warriors and Cavs to be a little bit of rivals. You're always going to expect the Lakers Celtics to be a little bit of rivals. Philly, New York, Boston, Philly, Boston, New York, that type of stuff. LA Clippers, LA Lakers. But the NBA needs more of these type of rivalries. The Wolves and Nuggets, the Wolves and the Mavericks, the Grizzlies and the Lakers. Matchups that you wouldn't initially think, oh, they don't like each other, but because of a playoff series or some sort of flashpoint, they do. And it's really, really exciting. It creates more hype and energy about just the regular season as a whole. We talked about how viewership is down, and there's been a lot of posts about how viewership is down, which some of it could be attributed to the fact that we've had days with 2 games and days with 14 games. Like you think the day before Election Day, we had all 15 teams in each conference playing all 30 teams. So it's hard to get viewership because they're not watching them. And you also have days where, the only nationally televised game is an NBA TV game. So the viewership is going to increase, not only just because we're eventually going to get national televised game when we get to NBC and Amazon Prime every day of the week, but also because of rivalries like this that just create a little bit more energy in what would otherwise be a meaningless, not actually meaningless, regular season game, or just your average regular season game. So I'm hoping those type of beefs continue to stay around the NBA. 2 more topics. Suns and Warriors. I talked about them pretty much every episode. Tied for the 1 seed with the Thunder out west right now, who we'll get into the Thunder in the last topic of the day. Out west, if you would have told me that it's the Suns and the Warriors up with the Thunder instead of the Nuggets or Mavs or Wolves, I wouldn't have believed you, although the Mavericks and Wolves and the Nuggets are all right there. But the Warriors being 7-1, I think, personally, is the shock of the season. The Suns were already a 6 seed last year, despite Bradley Beal missing so many games and coaching drama and all that sort of stuff. Then it was like, I could see them being up there. But the Warriors just were not good last year. Yes, you had the Draymond suspension that I do think cost them at least probably 4 or 5 wins, which would have made them 7 seed instead of a 10 seed or 8 seed or 9 seed. 9 seed or 10 seed like they were last year. But I'm excited for them to finally play some more real teams, and especially starting with the Cavs tonight because they haven't exactly had the hardest strength of schedule. But it's impressive, and especially in a conference that sees teams like the Wolves, the Nuggets, and Mavs be 5-3. Teams like the Lakers be 500. Teams like the Pelicans, although they're hurt, 3-6. This conference is stacked, and despite that, the Warriors and the Suns are 7-1, sitting at the top of the conference. Again, very early into the season, still 70-plus games to be played. But as fans of those teams, you can't help but be excited. Our final topic of the day, though, is a team we just talked about, and that is the OKC Thunder. That I was right that they would take their first L of the season. and they did take it to the Nuggets. Honestly, they very easily could also be 8-0 right now. I mean, they just had an incredible game from Jokic. Third quarter, I believe, where the Nuggets scored 40 points. Jokic puts up the second ever game in NBA history with 20-15, only second to Russell Westbrook. So you can't exactly be mad at that loss, right? You lost by 2 to the Nuggets, who I believe were at home. Yes, they were at home. You lost to probably one of the best home court advantages in the NBA, to probably the best player in the NBA, putting up a historic night. What can you do? You're not going to go 82-0. So for Thunder fans, there's nothing much to be scared of. And if you play the Nuggets in a 7-game series, I think I'm still pretty confidently picking you, because you dominated them the first time you played them. And then when you go out there and play them a second time, it takes a historic performance on the road for the Thunder just to even have a chance of beating you. The Thunder still could have won that game. So I think the Thunder are still the favorites out west for sure. Although the Nuggets certainly look better after what was a very weird and slow start. And we have made it to the end of the episode. Sorry for you having to deal with my voice, my coughing, my sniffling all episode long. But if you did make it, I really, really do appreciate it. As always, every single episode can be found on YouTube and on Spotify. If you are watching over on YouTube, seeing me face to face right now, you can go listen to every episode over on Spotify. Just search up Around the World, search up Bordy Boss 30. You will find it. If you are listening over on Spotify, all videos are also available on YouTube. Just look up Around the World, look up Bordy Boss 30. You will find them. Link should be in the profile for both YouTube and Spotify on either platform. If you want to see more short form content, be sure to check out my TikTok or my Instagram. Both. My TikTok is WordyBoss30. My Instagram is ATW_pod, Around the World Pod. You will certainly find it. As always, if you made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching or listening. And I'll see you guys for first ever double digit episode 10 of Around the World, coming on Monday.